Oh, you got to be kidding me. Broke. All right. Well, what can you do? Just has to hang like that. How many books do I have here? 1, 2, 3. All right, so this video shouldn't be too long. It's not reviewing my top books of the year so far. I've read all of these books this year and other ones, and these are the ones where either a chapter has really struck me or a certain section has struck me. I guess I'll cheat a little bit that way. But I'm mostly dealing with a certain area of a book that has stood out. Now, it doesn't mean these are my top books, although a lot of these are, and I'll try to kind of mention that. And even if there's a couple books that maybe weren't my favorites, but I'll try to still recommend them to others. And they still had favorite chapters for me. So these aren't in total order, even though I tried to rank them in level of impact from 1 to 14, I think I have here. But on any given day, they might change. So let's go through it. So the first book I'll talk about is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. And the chapter that struck me the most is right at the start. It's not a prologue, but it's about Robert. And this is the one where I could say I connected with the author right away. It's like I immediately knew and could relate to this author because I relate to the same things. Now, I didn't feel that captivated throughout the book. I think this is his first book. It was self-published, and he has other ones that I think I'll read as well. I think there are also sample chapters online that you could find, and you would know right away by reading the first chapter whether it's something that connects with you. The next one. This year I read Moby Dick, and I really love that book. I still haven't done a review for it, even though I really want to, because I love a lot of what is coming across with this book. I don't think it is for everyone, but for nerds like me who are into the whole legend of the Leviathan and things like that, great book. The chapter that really struck me from this book, and I'll label as sweet and odd, sort of, is when Ishmael, the titular character, meets Queequeg. And it's odd. It's kind of sweet, and I really love it. It's right near the start of the book as well. In that chapter, you will find an unlikely friendship being forged together and bonded, and there are other examples throughout the book of this friendship. It's not all about that friendship, but it's one of the parts that struck me the most when I read it for my first time. Number 12. And just thinking about it right now, I realize that I will be talking about certain parts in books. If it's going to be a big spoiler, I'm not going to talk about it. I will allude to it for the people who have read it, but I'm not going to give away major spoilers that would give everything away. But I think if you come to a video like this, some level of kind of spoilery stuff might be sort of expected. Now, this next book, number 12, instead of saying what kind of chapter it is, I guess I could put up the meme of that the kid holding the drink and going. Comes from Frankenstein. Frankenstein, if you haven't read it, is quite different in a lot of ways than you would get from the movies, from the Hollywood Universal kind of iteration of Frankenstein. He's much more of a empathetic, sympathetic character in a lot of ways. We kind of feel for him. He does terrible things. He longs for companionship. And a part of this book is having him go towards Dr. Frankenstein, who has created him and neglected him and hates him. And this monster, who everyone calls Frankenstein, Frankenstein's monster, wants a companion. he was able to make the monster, why can't he make a companion? And he'll go off and leave everyone alone if he'll just give him a companion. And somewhere in this book, the doctor agrees and says, yeah, I'll make you someone as long as you just leave everyone alone and da-da-da-da-da. So he's making it. The monster's kind of leering in through the windows, watching it happen. And right before the doctor's able to complete the work, he has a change of heart. He decides, I'm not going to do this. And so, and I guess this is a spoiler. Anyway, he tears apart this woman who he's creating for Frankenstein's monster, who we all call Frankenstein. And just tears it apart. And it's this moment where you are just shocked. There's something kind of funny and brutal about it. And you just think, Dr. Frankenstein's going to get it for this. And that kind of starts a next portion of this book that is so great that I recommend to people. Some people take me up on it. Some people don't. The people who have, I think usually really like it. And that portion of that book just always gets me. The Count of Monte Cristo is the reason why I started this channel after reading this book. Now, this isn't, and it's very different from the movies. I hadn't seen the movie. I just went to the book, and the chapters that stick out for me, or the portion, it's not really the chapter, it's that section, is it's right around page 100, 150, in that section there. Dantes finds himself in this island prison where they are basically always in solitary. And after some time, he meets up with someone called Abbe Faria. And Abbe Faria is one of my favorite characters in any book I've ever read. If you know the shows and the movies, you know who this is. If you've read the book, he's just so much greater. And that section of The Count of Monte Cristo is just the beginning of the most exciting book, long book, but great book that I think everyone should read. If I had to give a top 10 books of all time, it would be right up there for me. It might be my favorite book that I read all year. Number whatever. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 10, I think. Dracula. Most people know this story. A lot of people have read it. Right near the beginning of it, there's this imagery of the Dracula climbing up the tower. And it's just creepy and freaky. And everyone loves this chapter. So do I. The next one. I've been reading Harry Potter with my daughter. We are actually halfway through The Half-Blood Prince. So we started that about Christmas, and we've gotten through, and it's been fun to reread them through my daughter's eyes. And I remember this hitting me when I read it as a teenager. Now this one, there are tons and tons of reveals that happen. My daughter went from hating a character to loving a character and having that person be her favorite character. I have a favorite character from the same scene involving a shack. It's a different character than her, but it's also a favorite character of mine. We'll see as we go on if that other favorite character becomes her favorite character. Just a really, really great conclusion of that book. Even today, I think it still holds up. Really, really strong conclusion, that part in the shack. And in the movie as well, it's great too. This one, I will say is, I'll just put the caption, "No way, that is so awesome." And it comes from Project Hail Mary. This is one where if I talked about it, it would be a massive spoiler, so I won't. This main character wakes up on a ship, doesn't even know his name. He has amnesia, doesn't know why he's there, and he's basically the only one there. So he's in outer space. He doesn't know where in outer space he is. He doesn't know even if he's in our solar system. Now, this is one of those things where I can't talk about it really, but there's a moment around chapter 7 or 8 where I think he looks out a window and he notices something that catches his attention. And it just becomes so interesting from there. Amazing book. I think I could recommend this one to almost anyone. Children of Time. Another sci-fi book that was incredible. I'm actually talking about the epilogue. My favorite epilogue that I read all year comes from this book. I think it's fantastic. I've done a review for some of these. I've done a review for this one as well. Really, really incredible epilogue that just wraps everything up. I'm excited to read the next one, as well as the third one that comes out, I think, in a couple months. Now, Children of Time was my most satisfying ending runner-up. My most satisfying ending of a book all year so far is Mistborn. Now, not this one. The Hero of Ages. Hero of Ages is the end of the Era 1 trilogy. I think it ends amazingly. If you've read it, you know why. I can't wait to read these again. I have read some other from Sanderson. I've read the first 2 from the Stormlight Archive, as well as some Elantris and All of Warbreaker. Excited to get to the rest, but it was actually the ending of Era 1 that has struck me the most. Awesome ending. Now this one is a sense of wonder. There are all sorts of different kinds of sci-fi. There are epic space battles. There are things like Frankenstein, where it's just things are weird. There's also a type of sci-fi that just makes you have to close the book and think what that might look like. Sometimes sci-fi is about being alone, like in Project Hail Mary, or being in this very strange area where you have no idea if something's about to happen. Now, Rendezvous with Rama, if you don't know what that is, the Earth is in the near future, and there's this cylindrical object that they find flying through the solar system. And so mankind, they send a small crew up to see what's going on, to intercept it. When they get there, they see this big, massive tube that I can't remember the dimensions completely, but like 50 kilometers long, about 20 wide, really, really long, just a cylinder. And they land right on the nose of it, and they decide we have to go inside and see what this is. This obviously isn't a natural object. This isn't a meteor or anything like that, a comet. We have to go inside. And they get inside. So I won't mention what they see in there, but I'll mention the very start of it. And it's this big sense of awe. They get inside, and it's quite vacuous and empty and quite dark. And there's a stairway that they find. It's either a stairway or a ramp. I can't quite recall. And they can't really see ahead of them because it's this big open space. They can see the stairway that they keep going down, and they wonder what they're going to see when they get to the bottom of it. And that imagery really has stuck in my mind. This isn't a great epic sci-fi, but it's one that it's quite short. It's one that will stick in your mind for quite some time. And that moment stuck in my mind. Okay, this next one freaked me out. And it changed my mind on how I view aliens. It is The Dark Forest. Now, I can't say much about why I love this chapter that I love from this book, but the series is basically a first contact where humanity is blasting out radio signals in all these different directions, asking if anyone's out there. Now, the second book has this climactic moment that I have to just leave it at that, but it's amazing. I know a lot of people really love this book. A lot of people struggle with some of the writing. Really, there's no chapters. It just goes and goes and goes and goes, and there's no chapters. There's no break. You just go. There's sections, but you might be reading for 120 pages of one section. But really, really great. Now, the scariest thing I read this year was Melmoth the Wanderer. And there are many, many moments that I could add, but there is one moment where this individual is looking at this painting, and this painting just terrifies him. And it's amazing how that leapt off the page, and I didn't even want to look at this image really anymore. But I'm going to finish it eventually. I kind of stopped and went to some lighter stuff. Now, number 2, there are many chapters I could choose from this series. I've been reading this series this month. I'm almost finished it. I'm actually in the last half of the last book, Wrath. Now, there are many chapters I could choose from this series, ranging from heart-wrenching to awe-inspiring to whatever else. I've chosen chapter 63 of Wrath. I noticed another YouTuber talk about chapter 63 in Ruin. Funny how, it was an amazing chapter. I'm choosing chapter 63 in Wrath for the idea that it is so exciting. I've had my heart ripped out and stomped on so many times in this series. It is great to finally get something so exciting. If this was a movie, the whole crowd would be standing up and cheering. There's plenty more to happen in this book, but for some reason that just got me. It involves some tunnels and an action sequence, and the closing of that action sequence is just incredible. I loved it. And my last thing, I'm going to cheat a little bit in saying all of Don Quixote is my favorite. I love this book, and you should read it too. All right. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you maybe pick up some of these books if you haven't. If you have, the things that I'm talking about probably. If you've read anything this year, let me know what your favorite chapters were. If you didn't read anything, let me know what your favorite parts in shows that you watched were this year, and I'll maybe check them out. All right. Talk to you later.